All right. Well, welcome everybody to the next Paradigm Solutions Spatial Solutions webinar. Happy to have you here. We've been doing these now, done about a half a dozen of them, and I think they've been a pretty good success. Quite a wide variety of topics on GIS and campus operations and utilities and facilities management. And today we got another good one. Doug Sims from Georgia Tech is joining us to talk about their journey in getting GIS up and running and moving forward. Um, I loved his title, the Instant GIS Program in just 10 years. Um, so a little bit about us, Paradigm Solutions. So we're a geospatial consulting company working with organizations from small to large, primarily in the campus world, higher education K through 12, but also municipalities, utility districts, working with anybody who is starting their GIS journey, getting their data documented and put together, to those that are further along and doing ARC indoors implementations, to utility networks, to advanced strategy and coordination. And one thing I always like to talk about is the name Paradigm comes from the Latin for prepared. That's my biggest pet peeve, is problems that come up that could have been that could have been avoided with a little more planning. So what can we do to be proactive on the decisions and data documentation and all? So with that, I'm going to pass it to Doug. Doug, you can introduce yourself and screen share on your side.
Sure.
I'll let you take it away and appreciate it.
Yeah.
And before you get started, I just want to interject. Anybody else wants to ask questions along the way, feel free to put them in the chat. I'll monitor the chat and we can kind of keep an eye on that. Maybe we can interject questions along the way, but don't feel like you have to hold them until the end.
Yep. Absolutely.
Doug, take it away.
All right. I'll go ahead and share my screen and get started as I kind of introduce myself. So, as Chris mentioned, we were going over kind of what I wanted to talk about and how I wanted to introduce this. And one thing we got to talking about was I've been doing this specific position for about 10 years now. And it seems like in the last year or two, everything has just kind of clicked. And so it seemed like to a lot of our users that we just all of a sudden have a GIS program. So I thought we'd just title this Instant GIS Program. So we just add lots of work and wait 10 years, and then it happens. So a little bit about who we are. So I work at Georgia Tech, which is officially the Georgia Institute of Technology. Most people know it as Georgia Tech. This is where we are. You can see the tiny little blue square on the North American map there. And as I zoom out, you can see where we're at in Atlanta. We're in Midtown Atlanta, which is the northern section of Atlanta. We're just north of North Avenue, which was traditionally the northern boundary of the city of Atlanta back when Atlanta was first done. So we were technically out in the boonies when the university was first started in 1885, I believe, or 1895, something like that. And so we've grown quite a bit, and obviously Atlanta has grown up around us, and we are a very urban campus here in Atlanta, in kind of the heart of the South here in Georgia. So that's where we are and what we are. We've got about 400 acres here. And I started at Tech in 2008. So before that, I worked in civil engineering and land surveying firms. I went to Southern Polytech State University, which was absorbed by Kennesaw State University here in Georgia a few years ago. But I got a civil engineering technology degree, and I did land surveying and civil engineering projects and jobs with a few different companies until 2008. Everything kind of fell apart then with housing and subdivisions and things like that. So I looked for a new job and got this job here at Georgia Tech as a utilities analyst. And what I realized that meant was I'm paying utility bills. That's pretty much all I did, manage utility bills. One of my tasks from my supervisor was finding our water meters. Where are the water meters on campus? We had like 30 something accounts we were paying a bill on and didn't know where they were. So I got to go around campus a lot, look for water meters, and put those on a map, which ended up being an AutoCAD map at the time. Title changed to utilities engineer, but I pretty much did the same thing. But throughout that time until 2014, I got a really intimate knowledge of all of our utility systems, how we build those systems, how we paid for the energy for those systems, and how they operated and where they were on campus. In 2014, I moved over to our IT department here in facilities. to help with our system administration. I say deficiencies. We had some personnel changes, and I came in and basically had a systems admin role, but the goal was for me to do GIS data, manage GIS data, build up a GIS infrastructure for facilities, because we had virtually no data at all. We did start in 2014 a tree inventory, but that was not managed by us. That was managed by the academic side. And so we did have some GIS data on campus, and we have a master's degree in GIS that Georgia Tech does, but nothing in our administrative side. So I was basically starting that in 2014. And as I wrote here, I was a one-man shop. So I was maintaining utility locations, working on field data collection, using some mobile apps, that kind of thing, and basically just trying to convince everyone that GIS is necessary, that we really need to use this. This is a really important tool that we should use. But as we've moved along through that job's gotten easier and easier as people realize the value of that. A little over a year ago, we've got a pretty steady role of some student assistants helping us out each semester. And then I did hire an additional full-time analyst named Kelsey, who worked with me as a student in 2019, who is now full-time helping out with taking some of my workload, building some training documents, and doing what I call GIS evangelism. Basically us getting out there, telling people what we have, what's available, and what we can do. So that's kind of the quick history of GIS here on campus. So just to kind of show you where we started and where we've moved to, this was our kind of a snippet of our AutoCAD map. That was all of our utilities on campus. You had lots of drawings pulled in. You had different datums that we were trying to match up. You had little insets put in here, all sorts of stuff that was great if you knew how to use AutoCAD and you had an AutoCAD license and you knew the caveats with the data quality in this was great. But that didn't really work out for a lot of people, a lot of our users. And so what we ended up doing was moving that over to a GIS map. And so this let us update the data more easily, locate the data, and then add, of course, the metadata that comes from having GIS data. And so now we can click on these features here in the map and actually see data that's associated with the meters, with the features here on campus. And we can kind of scroll through and see what data we have, where these features are, what's related to those, and that kind of thing. So I want to talk a little bit about what our GIS strategy is now moving forward, how we're kind of building this out as an institute and what we're focused on. And the first thing is to provide authoritative data to administration of finance. So that's kind of the parent organization over facilities here. And that basically covers everything that's not the academic units. So anything on the administrative side is what we're hoping to provide services to and help out with different roles. Of course, the main thing of that is maintaining and managing spatial data. This is our campus here. If you didn't get a look at it before, kind of the green shaded areas is all of our area. We have a little area just off the southwest corner of campus here. Some stuff on the other side of the interstate where we're building some new buildings. And overall, about 400 acres here right in Midtown that we manage data for. One of the other options, and I'll talk about some examples in a minute, is consulting on GIS solutions. People come in and they want to improve a workflow or digitize a process that's paper-based right now, or may not even have a process at all. And a lot of times these things are spatial in nature. And so we try to provide a GIS solution for those people that need some kind of workflow. And once we come up with what GIS solution we're going to use, we start to implement a new workflow for those people and to get them using some kind of process that actually lets them track the work they're doing and display and report on that effectively. One of the other key components of this that I've actually learned from our CFTA talks we've had in the past is partnering with key employees in each unit to not only train and utilize the tools, but also be kind of our evangelists in those departments to really push this technology and push the value we get from GIS. One of my roles, as coming up as a one-man shop, I get to also maintain all of our data security and sharing between the units and the layers. So we have a large number of groups in our organization, and we have a large number of permissions set up to where we can share layers effectively, but also not share too much with people that may or may not need to access that data. And then kind of the second pillar of what our strategy is to support operations with this data, right? We're collecting all this data, but it's kind of useless if we're not actually out in the field supporting our operations and our field employees to actually do this. And one way we're doing that is with a mobile first strategy. Back in 2012, I believe, we actually started handing out iPads to all of our maintenance employees, and we moved to what we call a technology enhanced work management system. And that allowed them to do all their work orders on an iPad. And so with that base of so many employees having an iPad in their hands out on campus, that really gave us a good option to use some of Esri's tools like Field Maps, Collector originally, and then things like Survey 123 and Quick Capture, so that they can use mobile devices out in the field, connect to our data in real time, and see the data that we have available for them to use. This is just a quick example here. This is one of the layers that Kelsey helped me with, where we're actually tracking our fuel burning inventory on campus. This is a requirement for our Title V air emissions permit we have. We have to track all of the fuel burning equipment on the campus. And so this GIS layer shows us where the equipment is. It gives us some details about what it is, where it's located, and even things like what account number it's located with, the capacity, how much heat energy it actually puts out or fuel it actually burns. And then we can attach photos and different documents to that as well. So this has been really helpful for them to organize this data, but also update it in the field. They can take a photo, attach it to the point directly. They don't have to do any extra work when they come back to the office, syncing up photos and attaching them to a spreadsheet or in a folder. Which also lets us move into the next part of seamlessly sharing data. So that fuel burning equipment, they also rely on things like generator reports from our utilities guys of how often our generators are running, how much gas they're burning, different things like that. So having this data combined in a GIS layer lets them share that data seamlessly without anyone having to do any extra work. We're not emailing spreadsheets back and forth, hopefully, and we're not sharing a whole bunch of extra files around that don't need to be shared. And then, of course, we're doing training for this. So we're providing training to the employees, providing hardware support. We have a few GPS units we're using that we will either assign to a department or show them how to use it, and they can check it out when they need to do some location or search for some data. So any questions about the strategy and what I've talked about now? I don't see anything coming into the chat yet. All right, I'm going to move on. I'm going to talk about some of our digital solutions we've done, and I'll give a quick overview of these, and then I'll go into a little more detail on the one I talked about last year with our landscape service request. But kind of just in high level, we moved from a web form that was on our facilities website into a GIS form with Survey 123. And those requests would come in. We could send notifications out to an email address and a notification in Teams so that people could see new requests come in. And then those requests could be tracked and updated by field crew as they got the work done. So they could actually go out. If, for example, we had a tree fall down or a limb that needed to be taken care of because it might be a danger to the parking lot or some pedestrians, people can report this directly from their phone. It shows up on the tree crew's iPad. They can go out there, take care of it, mark it as complete. And we've had some of those recently where that's all done within about 3 or 4 hours of the report coming in, work getting done and getting approved. So really tightening up our response and our workflow of keeping the campus safe and clean and looking good. We took that model, applied it to our outside lighting request. We have about 2,500 street lights on campus, and those that we maintain. and the lights go out, the poles get knocked over, different things happen. And so we've created 2 different forms for this to manage. We have a public form that anybody from the campus community can submit requests on. And we also have an internal form that our electricians can fill out when they have an issue. And data from both those forms goes into a single dashboard to where our admin can see that data and see all the reports that are coming in, and then assign those as work orders or communicate with our other partners like Georgia Power and the City of Atlanta if the lights are maintained by them and not us, which happens occasionally. And so that just kind of sets up that general workflow process. This has been pretty successful. And so that's kind of the strategy we've been using, is determine a use case, talk with the users, figure out what they're actually doing or what they need to do, come up with a data collection strategy, which has so far been using Survey 123. We have used a few other options like quick capture or some web maps where users can enter data in. But generally, we use a Survey 123 form because it's very easy to use for a generic user. We take the triggers and the automation that Microsoft provides with Power Automate and send that data into emails and Teams messages for people to see those notifications and know when they need to act on something. And then we build things like dashboards so they can get an overview of it. We build some ways for them to edit the data and update the data, either in field maps or in web maps. And then, of course, we monitor that and adjust it as needed. So let me go into, real quick, the landscape flow. And let me swap this. There we go. Is that showing up good? And so I'll breeze through a few of these because this is information I've already talked about. But here's kind of the overview of what we did. So we had a web form, migrated that to Survey 123. We have notifications, and then we have a way of tracking it. And this is kind of the technology stack we're using for that. This is kind of what the previous web form looked like, with just a kind of the simple location was a big box that people could fill in, and wasn't really useful for them actually determining where things were. So we did have had a lot of options for the type of service people wanted. There was 55 items on that list, and it was a little overwhelming for users to pick something, and it was a little too detailed. There was things like remove gum from a bench and fertilize plants, things that weren't really what we cared that a user should be submitting. So we simplified that down to a much smaller list of requests there. But here's the types of services we had. And so it just kept going. It was a lot. So we trimmed that down, made it a little more friendly with our new process here. So mobile friendly form, people could fill that out on their phone while they're walking around, so you don't have to wait till you get back to the office. It would capture the location. If you're standing out there, it would know where you are already. And then attach a photo of the issue. That was the biggest request we got from our landscaping department, was if they just sent me a photo of what they're trying to describe, I could probably figure out where it is and figure out who I need to send out to fix it. So that was kind of the process there. And then we wanted to also do things like integrate with our work order system, which we use AssetWorks AIM to manage our work orders. That part we're still actually working on. Don't quite have it done, but we do have some ways to link that data up already. So, and then of course, assigning those tasks efficiently for people. And this is stuff I've already talked about, where we've got data collection forms, maps and dashboards, notifications, and then status updates. Just a quick note about how we use Power Automate. If you're not familiar with it, there's some webhooks for Survey 123 that's built in. When those are submitted, it goes through a process to send those notifications to the GIS channel. Here's kind of how we built that out. We have posted in our facilities GIS channel in the landscaping, or the facilities GIS team in the landscaping channel, and it's set to send an email out to their shared mailbox for the landscaping group. We provide a dashboard for them to see. This is view only. They can filter some things, and we've got some links to the apps, but this gives them a good overview of where the services are, what they look like, and what they need to be editing on there. So one thing we talk about is moving from paper to digital. So a zero paper workflow is desired. That was kind of what we started back in 2012, 2015 kind of time, but it's not really feasible for our landscaping group simply because they have some technology limitations. We don't have iPads for all of those people. We don't have a mobile device for them to carry around everywhere right now. And then there's also some user acceptance limitations, which of course is the nice way of saying some people don't like technology and they would rather just cut the grass and not worry about an iPad. So we're working through that too. But we also did do a story map for internal process training. So the presentation form I was given a minute ago with the story maps there, we built one of those to train our employees on how to use that. I've got that pulled up. I'll show you in a minute. And then just as I said, not everyone has a smartphone, but we did make some unique maps and field maps for the individual teams to see their reports so they could just focus on what they needed to work on. That's the story map. If you guys want to scan that QR code, if anybody wants to check it out, I'll leave it up for a few seconds and then I will show off the story map and a couple other things real quick. Did I miss any chat while I was going through all that? No? Okay. So this was the story map we built and kind of has some high level navigation up here that shows this off. So here's the survey we built. We're just asking for name and email address, optionally a phone number. But if we get their name and the email address, we can figure out who it is, if it's a campus member or if it's somebody else that's just kind of wandering through the website and found this form. And we're asking for, looks like 5 different options here. We have an other. Everybody always wants an other. The other is usually useless or it will fit somewhere else. But we put an other in there in case there is something we didn't think about. But generally, this covers all the issues that our landscaping department handles. If it's an other, it should probably go to a different person or a different form. But for now, we leave it in here. We do require a photo of the issue. This was optional at first, and I realized that that was kind of the most crucial part. So we just require a photo. So you got to add at least one photo. We do occasionally get things like the Georgia Tech logo that somebody put in there, or like a screenshot of them filling out the form or something. So we'll get kind of useless stuff sometimes, but generally this is a good photo of the weeds they need pulled or the tree limb that's hanging down over the parking lot or something like that. And I did recently bump this up from just a single photo up to 5 photos for each submission. Our Georgia Tech Police Department is using this form a lot more now, and they want to add additional photos where they can actually show, okay, here's the 3 cameras we got and the trees that are in the way. Can you fix these? And to where we got a better view of our security cameras. And then the location, obviously this finds your location if you're on a mobile device. I am not on campus right now, so it's not going to find me. But the user can scroll around, click the button, and put it where it is on campus. If they need to, they can zoom in and say, you know, it's right here in between these sidewalks here where you need to do that, or come over here and pressure wash this sidewalk. And then a box for comments. This usually ends up being useful as well. The user will provide things like, hey, we've got a project, we got an event coming up next week. Can we get this sidewalk pressure wash or get these weeds pulled before people come in? They hit submit, and then it goes on through the rest of the process here. This is kind of some views of what it looks like in our Teams view with a request coming in. It's got some information. We've changed this up a little bit to show a little more information about the user and what they submitted. So it's a little faster to see what details are coming in. But I have some hyperlinks embedded in there where they can get directly to the dashboard or directly to that editing app if they want to assign it to someone already. As I mentioned, Kelsey's been building some instructional videos. So she's actually got a video here that shows how to use this dashboard. So you can watch this about 1.5 minutes long, and the user can get an idea of how to actually use this. And then we have it embedded in the story map here, so where they can actually watch the video and then follow along and actually see things where they can actually come in here, see things like what's been assigned, what's been completed, that kind of thing. And it looks like my map is broken because this is a copy, but in general, it's supposed to filter the map out, but this is the public copy I made. But it does filter this. At least you can see these are recent requests that have come in that haven't been assigned yet. And we've got a bunch that are completed this week. So looking good. The editing app, same kind of format here. We've got a video showing how to use this, how to log in and edit data in here. Quick little intro box that pops up when you open it up of how to do this, what you really need to edit. There's not a whole lot of data we're asking them to update, just 2 or 3 points. And then we show them a little more detail on how to do that and how to update that data or assign tasks to people. And then we've got more instructions on how to actually do this from field maps, showing them what group to go to, what the maps look like and the names are and that kind of thing. So just some more examples of this. These are updated live, so we don't always have data on all these, but here's some of the grounds requests, no irrigation open requests right now, and a few tree requests. So they've been doing pretty good keeping up with it. And then here's a nice little video, 7 minutes long, that actually shows this overall workflow of how it's supposed to work. Quick pause for any other questions. And I'll run through this one quickly as well. It's pretty much the same. I've gone over this 2 or 3 times already, but kind of get the same kind of workflow going with our outside lighting requests. And you can see there's a lot more lighting issues going on campus. We have a lot of street lights go out, circuits get turned off, poles get hit, that kind of thing. So this one's used a lot. But same kind of workflow here. Request is submitted, notifications are sent out. You review it with a dashboard or you update it in an editing app. So the form looks pretty much identical, almost the exact same format. A few other options like, does it have an ID tag on it? They can say yes or no, that kind of thing, but pretty much exactly the same. This is our internal one, which is a little different. We have a link so they can actually see the map viewer with all of our lights. I'll show you that in a minute with all of our lights on campus. They usually know a little more of what's going on, so we have some different options for them to choose, whether it's a damaged head or damaged pole. Things like whether it's cycling, that's a big issue of whether the light's just flashing on and off. They have ways of fixing that. So lots of different options. They can actually specify the light type. So we have some specific types of lights on here. That way they know what tools or supplies they need when they're going to go out and work on it. If they know it's a Cobra head with a certain bulb in it, they know what to take with them. Or if it's a shoebox light or that kind of thing. Or if it's an LED light, they know they don't need any bulbs. Same kind of thing. Have an option for if there's multiple lights out. If we say, yes, there's 10 lights out all on the street, it's probably a circuit issue and not a lighting issue. So little ways for them to filter that and assign it to the right group of people. And then we can actually say, who actually owns this. If we know it's a Georgia Power or City of Atlanta light, we can assign that to, we can send that off to their work order systems. Or if it's housing or parking, those people have their own maintenance people that manage those. So we can kind of sort it out with this survey a little more quickly to make sure the right people are getting the data. And these look pretty much the same. We've got some lights out, some external reports here of things coming in. Very similar. So this is our lighting app here, or lighting map. color coded by who owns or who manages the lights. So everything in blue is something managed by our department and facilities. The yellow are lights managed by our housing group. Red is Georgia Power Company lights. You see those are kind of around the perimeter of campus there. And then the other colors are purple and pink. Those are either parking or City of Atlanta, depending on where they are. And there's a few green ones that are just not us at all. And I think I said there's about 2,500, almost 3,000 lights on campus if you count all of the external organization lights as well. So, all right. So I don't think I'm seeing the questions, Chris. So if you want to pop
Yeah, we
some
got
in.
several popping in. Do you want to keep going and then we start addressing them,
No, I
or?
think this is a good spot to stop, I think.
Okay, okay. I will, let's bounce this over. There's a lot of discussions going. I'm going to share mine again, just we pull this up. Can you see that?
Not yet. Or maybe I can, I just don't have it up.
Hopefully you see.
It says you're sharing, I just don't see it on my screen.
Let's try one more time. Stop share.
There it goes.
There we go. All right, so we do have several questions coming in, some stuff I want to chat about as well. So let's go through them in order. I guess Dean first mentioned that the StoryLink map you provided goes to an ARC Online testing site, requires a login. So you may want to look at that if you want to make that
Oh,
public.
yeah. Sorry. Let's see if this one is
By the way, everyone, we will make this video. I'm recording this. We'll post this video to the Paradigm Solutions YouTube channel, so you can go back and look at it later as well. First, I want to take a step back. Doug, I appreciate this. You showed a lot of things, and I think you kind of really glossed over the fact of how long it took you there. I mean, the title
yeah.
10 years. You're like, "Look at the
Sorry.
great
Yeah.
things we've done."
Yeah.
Uh, I was like telling people this is first off, it's a misery loves company. You kind of got to, people need to realize they're not alone. And I've talked to several people realize that, like, saying, oh, we're so far behind, we haven't done anything, and you're not there. It's,
Yep.
you're still making strides to make progress on this, and still a lot of opportunity. But hopefully people are seeing what you've done, and at least get some light bulbs go off.
Yeah.
Personally, I love talking about this. I learn something new every time I talk to somebody who's doing this. I loved your idea of the fuel burning equipment, or that project. That's
Yeah.
something I'd never seen. You talk about HVAC units and boilers and things like that, but looking at it for that specific purpose,
Yeah.
federal reporting or state reporting.
Yeah. That was one that came about because the guy managing that came by and said, hey, they have a new requirement this year. We have to have a latitude and longitude for every piece of equipment we report this year. He said, I can't do that. My consultant that writes the report for me can't do that. Can you help me out? I said, yeah. I said, you got it in a spreadsheet, right? And he said, yeah. I said, you know what building they're in? He said, yeah. I said, those have a building number. My layer has a building number. We joined it based on the building number, and we got whatever 500 points on the map in about 30 minutes.
Yeah.
So
And
that was
you start, here's where the building centroid is, and you can move it to what what side of
exactly.
the building, and get more
Yeah.
detail.
And if you noticed on that map, a lot of them are still in the center of the building. The EPD actually pushed back and said, hey, a bunch of these have the same GPS coordinate. We said, well, you know what? Latitude and longitude isn't very accurate, and that's close enough.
Yeah.
So we kind of just said, you know what, it's good enough for what you're asking for. It meets the requirements.
I always say, don't let perfect get in the way of better, for what you're trying to do. Now, you can always go
Absolutely.
back and later when somebody's got the tablet in their hand, they move it and things like that and refine it. But
Yep.
yeah, to your point. Bradley asked, we're the very beginning stages of setting up our GIS program for a university. And first off, so congrats on that. Can you talk about getting more buy-in from users? I'll jump in on this part of this. That is one of the hardest things you can do. And Doug, I think you kind of touched on that. That advocacy and that buy-in is one of the hardest challenges you're going to face.
Yep.
My personal approach, we're all here talking GIS. When I talk to folks, I almost never say GIS.
Yeah.
Because that's too technology focused. It goes over people's heads. Think about, and Doug touched on this, you can dive into this a little more. You need to address the challenges these people have. What are their issues that they're dealing with? it could be something as simple of, I don't know where all of these, I got a state requirement now to put the locations for these burning units, or I, you talked about starting off with the meters. Somebody said, where are the meters on campus? I literally have
Exactly.
a university I'm talking to right now that we're saying, we need to tag the meters.
Yeah, exactly. One other thing I've noticed is if you start building your data out, um, if there's some kind of crisis and somebody says, "Hey, I'd really like to know where the sewer line is here that we have to dig 30 feet down to find and fix because there's a leak." If you can send them a link to a map that has that on there, then you've won somebody's loyalty right there to the system. This past week, I'm a little underprepared because I've been focusing on our chill water system this past week, but we had a small leak in our chill water system became a big leak in our chill water system, and we had a bunch of buildings lose air conditioning on campus, which is not great. Showed you saw where we are on the U.S. there. It's hot right now. I think my watch says 88 right now outside, and it's like 80% humidity. It's hot outside, and we've got a bunch of buildings that we had lost air conditioning in, and so we said, "Hey, can we? Is there some way we can show what buildings are not don't have air conditioning?" I said, "Yeah." When we did our shutdown back in December to prep for this, remember I gave you guys a map, so I did the same thing. We updated the buildings that were out of service on the chill water system, and we sent a screenshot out of that. And after about 5 screenshots of new building updates, I said, "Hey, why don't we take the map that I'm using and just embed it on our website?" And that way I can have the mechanical engineer update the buildings as he sees them come back online and chill water pressures come up in those buildings. He can update them in service, and nobody has to ask for screenshots every 6 hours or every 8 hours. And that's been a huge win. And then I just got another message this morning saying, "Hey, it'd be really nice if we could track the status of the valves on campus for all the chill water system." And my response was, "We can already do that. I can show you guys how to do it tomorrow." So we've got a lot of stuff in place now that people are saying, "Wow, if we could do this, that'd be great." And I say, "We can. Here's how to do it." And I walk them through it, and now we've got people that are on board with that. Uh, you know, Kind of making use of the crisis to uh, show some value in what we've got.
Mhm. You know, I say, unfortunately, a lot of times it takes that catastrophe to make change happen.
It does, yes.
Um, but you capitalize on it when you can. And you just said something too that I always leverage is, you can overwhelm people with all the things that can be done, but sometimes you have to let them discover it themselves.
Absolutely.
Kind of
Yep.
tee it up for success, and they come back, it'd be great if we could do this. That's a great idea. I wish I had thought about that.
Yeah.
And you already had, but they kind of have to come to that journey themselves. All right. Helen asked that their department is using AIM. You mentioned that as well. How are you connecting AIM with ArcGIS? And this kind of dovetails into the question I had for you, Doug, of you've got these coming in as work orders through survey 123. Are you keeping that completely separate from the AIM and then going
Sure.
populating that separately? How are you
Yep.
kind of coordinating those two programs, initiatives, softwares?
Yeah. So this is an easy one. So I got a similar question to me from Brad Beckman there, and the short answer is we're not actually connecting the data, not yet. The only connection I've done is that the users can enter in the AIM work order in a field in the GIS layer, and so that will let us tie that data back together in some kind of visualization tool like Tableau. So we've got our analytics department that's pulling in the work order information, and then we can also pull that GIS layer into Tableau and link those together. So that's how we're doing it right now. It's just a manual typing in a work order number into that field. We have been looking at ways of integrating that together where we're either creating customer requests that come in, which is basically like a precursor to a work order if you're familiar with AIM. The customer request is like, "I want this to be a work order," and then the area managers and the admins can go in and see those requests come in and approve those as a work order, or say, "No, that's not a work order, or it needs to be assigned to a different group." They can do that. Brad's question was specifically about ServiceNow. We do have ServiceNow on campus. Our main office of information technology uses that for all of their work orders. So that is a possibility where we could link in with that as well. Our IT group and facilities does not use ServiceNow for our work orders and our tickets that come in. So that's definitely a possibility as well. And it's all a matter of what does the API look like for that system to send those requests in. And I've done a little bit of that with AIM with a different program that's not technically GIS based. It's managing restroom requests where a user can scan a QR code by the door of the restroom and report things like the toilet paper's out or paper towels are out, that kind of thing. And so that actually goes directly into AIM using an API to actually push those customer requests in. So it's definitely possible, but for these solutions, we've not actually directly tied that into the work order system. It's more of a manual look at it after the fact and with some reporting. So
Is that a yet thing? Is that kind of on the radar to move in that
it's
direction?
definitely a get. Yeah, it's one of the holdups is I don't have the time to put the necessary development effort into it, and I don't have a development team that I can kind of push this off to right now. We have some resources, but it's kind of like just get in line and it'll happen kind of thing. If you were at CFTA and you heard my colleague Jimmy Harden and Kelsey give a presentation on our I can't remember what we called it, digital transformation, I believe, was basically talking about some of these manual processes we have and how we're using things like robotic process automation and things like AI and some other tools to actually take some of these manual processes and make those digitized and automated. So it's definitely in the realm of we want to do this and we can do this. It's just a matter of taking the time and building those connections, which we haven't done yet.
Mhm. Well, that goes back to the epitome of what I said of don't let perfect get in the way of better. You know, if we can start giving out simple solutions, you've improved a process, you've got
Absolutely.
feedback, you've got a coordinated process, you can always expand it, you can always grow it, you can ask for more.
Yeah.
I mean,
And
you go ahead.
yeah, one of the limitations that we've seen with our robotic process automation team is that when they get a request, they go in and they look at the process, and the process is either not defined well or it's not digital enough that they can even do anything with it yet. If everything's on paper, they can't really do anything with it. If it's already been moved from paper into some kind of digital workflow, then they have a better chance of digitizing that and automating that. So that's kind of where we're going, is where I'm seeing this as the precursor to getting a better integration with our work order system, where we're digitizing something that wasn't digital at all. It was either paper-based or some kind of disconnected workflow of a web form and email and paper and, filling out a time card sheet by hand and that kind of thing. So we're trying to pull a lot of this together to make it more of a seamless workflow.
Perfect. Perfect. Dean, kind of going back to the question about the comprehensive GIS program and getting it started. Yes, are there prerequisites you would recommend regarding your basic asset data quality, meaning CAD or BIM, as-built quality, etc.? I'm going to kind of touch on this, to begin with. Go back to the boiler example. I always say you can get as accurate as you want, but what are you trying to use it for? So the fuel adoption. Center point of a building is good enough for that purpose, for that initial quick, we need a deliverable to the state. You could get it sub-centimeter GPS accuracy if you really wanted to, but is that juice worth the squeeze right out of the gate? Or you have efforts you could put elsewhere?
Yeah,
Same kind of
and
goes for utilities. Go ahead.
absolutely. To that point, the GPS units I use right now are all sub-meter accuracy. I don't have any centimeter accuracy units at this point. I'm actually looking at getting some this year just because we have some new needs for that. But most of the requirements we have is the thing on the north side of the sidewalk or the south side of the sidewalk, right? If we get it within 3 feet, especially if it's a large pad mount transformer, the thing's 8 foot wide and 4 feet tall. I don't need to know where it is to the centimeter. I just need to know which side of the sidewalk it's on, which side of the building it's on, that kind of thing. So a lot of this is just what's the relative accuracy you need, and just what's the easiest way to get the data in. I have found our landscaping team is adding a lot more data to their layers. So they've got a layer where they're tracking all of the irrigation control valves. I set them up with an EOS Aero 100 unit on a 2-meter carbon fiber pole. They have an iPad that attaches to it running quick capture. And so they go out, they turn everything on, they get it connected, they go stand over a valve, hit a button on quick capture, take a photo of it, and they move on to the next one. And they're doing that and they're collecting that. They're getting within 3 feet of the valve. And that's all they need, because they just need to know about where it is, where they can come back, next spring and figure out, okay, it's about right here. Rake off the pine straw. Okay, there's the valve box. That's all they need to know. They don't need to locate it to, a half a foot or 2-inch location for a valve box that's a foot wide. So, just those relative locations is all you need. The utility information, we actually did have a consultant come in and do our initial conversion of our AutoCAD utility information into GIS. So they took layer by layer from our GIS map, converted that into GIS. It's actually a Oracle spatial table, wasn't an Esri product at that time. But that was kind of how we got most of it into GIS. I converted that over to an Esri geodatabase shortly after that, just because of some of the needs we have with mobile applications. But that bulk import is a great time to use a consultant if you have the option to do that, to where it's not a super precise or super technical need of knowing exactly what information it is. Just, I need these lines where they are put into a geodatabase that we can then start working on, building out metadata and things like that.
I completely agree with you on that. The utility network, I always say you start with the spaghetti network, the CAD files, the plans, and you said at the beginning of this, you had that AutoCAD file with all your utilities, and I just chuckle because I know that's not all your utilities, and I know that that's not where they actually were. But you don't know that, and you can't improve that until you get it into the GIS, and then and you put it in somebody's hands and let them complain about it. That's not where that is, or it goes on the north side of the sidewalk, or came in the other side of the building, or or different plans will say different things. So you get that in there, and especially utilities, just it continually improves because it's something you can't see.
Yep.
Um,
Yeah, and having that data in AutoCAD gave people a little bit of a false sense of accuracy, because you had this one little line showing a chill water pipe. And in some cases, we had like really detailed multi-line segment drawings of, from a mechanical drawing of like the piping and the joints and everything. And it made it look like it was really accurate. But what we found out was it was not. It was relatively accurate, then it was a 20-foot long piece of pipe, but it was, the wrong side of the sidewalk, or it was 20 feet off the building instead of 5 feet off the building, that kind of thing. So going through, and as we uncover things like when we have to dig up a large portion of chilled water piping to find a leak, I'm going in with our GPS units now and locating those locations, locating the piping, the valves, the joints, and that kind of thing. So when I have the opportunity, it's great to go in there and get accurate locations. This week, I'm actually kind of wishing I had that sub-meter Aero Gold unit, but for now, we've also got a drone that the civil engineering department bought with a LiDAR scanner. So I'm using some other ways to capture that data, fly it with the drone, get a LiDAR scan of the area while the pit's open, and then we can go back later and pull that point cloud data in and get some measurements and elevations, things like that.
And for those who were at CFTA, I actually presented on utility mapping, how to get from what I call the digital doodle to the digital twin. And just the whole process involves the interim steps, the different SU levels, and pulling in LiDAR if you got it. But that's one I would definitely recommend at some point, getting that the very accurate GPS for those utilities. But kind of backing up too on these other assets, you're right. If you don't need the highest level precision, that's okay. Or we were talking to a client, we were doing a door inventory with their emergency management, trying to get a location of all the doors, and they were going to go out there and collect them with the phones. I was just, so you know, I told them that's going to be about plus or minus 15 feet. I'll never forget the police chief looking at me going, if the guy's standing 15 feet from a door and can't see it, that's a him problem.
Exactly. Exactly.
So going back to that question, as far as the data accuracy and quality, it depends what you're trying to do. And you can always continually improve those. And that's the location data, but also all of that attribute data associated with it. You can just continue to build upon that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I don't know if you noticed some of the points I clicked on our utility map example there had like no metadata at
Yeah.
all. A meter had nothing there. Uh, but some of those have a lot of information, right? And it's dependent on which ones we actually use the most that we start adding that information into. And that's when it becomes useful is you go to it once and you don't see that. So you look it up, you have them go back, log in, edit that data, add the information there so that it's there next time.
Yep.
And next time they come back to it, they click it, they know that the information is going to be there. So that's that kind of progressive updating of the information is really useful. And that also helps to get people on board with it if they're kind of involved and invested in updating the data, using the data they need, it's very helpful.
Mm. Real quick, I just noticed Kelsey is online, so kind of a shout out to Kelsey for the hard work on some of these. I know how much you've touched on, Doug, of the effort it takes, and it definitely takes a team to get this going. So,
Yep.
Another question on here: are you using standard tools for capturing and documenting workflows?
Um, it's standard for me, I guess. We're I guess I maybe a little more detail on what they're actually asking there. I don't know if they're asking how we're actually documenting that and showing the videos or how we're
Well, I kind of
tracking
see
that
that as
process.
two aspects. One is the data capture, but then that how are you I would say, what is your standard operating procedure? And then again, how are you enforcing that? So how are you ensuring that? So I guess one, there's the data capture. So you mentioned field map, survey 123, quick capture, all great tools to do different things. Um, okay, Dean just commented on here, process documentation. This is kind of
Okay.
a part that how are you tracking that standard operating procedure? How are you enforcing that, getting that out there? And you mentioned story maps and directed training and things like that.
Yeah. So when I first started doing this, we didn't have any business analysts. We didn't have any data analysts. We didn't actually have an analytics department. I was just kind of doing this off the cuff, going out and talking to people, figuring out how they were doing stuff, documenting their process, figuring out where it needs to change. I said I did civil engineering. I think I would have liked industrial engineering better. I really like kind of figuring out people's problems with their processes and fixing that. But um, I was just kind of doing this, and then we started an analytics department and hired some business analysts, and I realized I was actually doing legitimate process documentation and fairly close to the official way to do that. So we do have some business analysts now that will actually meet with people, document the process with some process diagrams, and actually track that. I wasn't doing that at first. I was basically just saying, show me what you do, tell me what you need. Very informal originally, and then going through a little more documentation. So we have a little better processes now. I think I started this back in 2021. So we've moved progressed a lot in how we document a lot of this stuff. But originally it was just talking with the person. It's usually like an admin that was responsible for creating a report, updating a spreadsheet. And I would go talk to her, talk to him, and figure out, what are you doing? Where does this go? Who uses this? And a lot of times we find out they're keeping track of a spreadsheet that nobody ever looks at. They're doing all this data entry work and they're working on this spreadsheet that nobody ever looks at. The only thing people care about is, okay, well, you created a work order. Did the work order get closed? And they say, yeah, but I'm tracking all this in a spreadsheet. Nobody's ever looking at it. So we try to condense that down to reducing excess work and reducing things like the field worker enters it in on a spreadsheet. That spreadsheet gets sent to the admin. The admin takes the data, enters it in on another spreadsheet, and enters it into a work order. And then that data gets reported out and converted to a spreadsheet and a chart that gets sent up to the VP. And so we're trying to condense a lot of that down and reduce some of that redundancy and unnecessary work with kind of centralized things like dashboards where we can just see everything in one view. You don't have to do any manual reporting. You don't have to create any spreadsheets. You just open up the dashboard, you see the list of things you got there, the breakdown of, you know, what percentage of these were tree requests versus irrigation requests, that kind of thing. And you can see how many came in for the week or how many came in for the month and how many are undone, not submitted yet or not approved yet and completed and that kind of thing. So,
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly it. The two things I kind of always touch on is you have an opportunity as an outside person sometimes. I do this a lot as an outside consultant. I was say, I'm going to come in and ask the dumb questions. You know, if you're not part of that process, I would say, I'm going to ask dumb questions. And the dumb questions a lot of times are why?
yeah.
Why are you doing that? And I don't say that as an attack. I'm just like, hey, fill me in. Help me understand what you're doing with that. Why are you doing it? Why are you capturing that? And if they know you don't mean as an attack and you're just generally asking, you can get to the root of some very interesting kind of results from that. You know, I'm capturing it because my boss needs it. Well, then what's he doing with it? I never have a chance to look at it, you know, or I was talking to somebody the other day and they're manually collecting meter readings. And then the boss, who the head of facilities, is compiling all these. Well, is there ways we can streamline that? You know, what are you doing with it? You know, once it's done, can you do that? You know, can we optimize that deliverable somehow?
Yeah.
And off of that, the other part of that is these requests for information will never go away
Right.
on the big picture. But and you touched on it several times of, you know, instead of you having to create these screenshots on a regular basis, now you've got something, a dashboard that is live that they can go to anytime they need that information. And that information goes to a website rather than you. And they always have that information at their fingertips. You've just improved their process, made their life easier.
Yeah.
Go back to the big picture. That's how you get buy-in.
Yeah. Especially in the summer when you've got people that take vacation.
Yep.
And if everything's going through one person's email inbox and that person's on vacation, then no work gets done. And so if you can remove yourself from that, and you know, we've tried to do things like shared mailboxes, and that's great, but it's still relying on somebody to check their email. We had a situation where one area maintenance group, uh, one guy was out sick, two other people had already scheduled vacation, and those are the only three people that had access to the shared mailbox. And so now we're figuring out how do we even see the request coming in for this group. And so, you know, it's those kind of things where you realize where you're falling down on some of this redundancy and things like that. Whereas if you've got a web page, you know, you can give somebody else permission to open that web page if they don't have it. But usually there's, you know, 5 or 6 people already that have access to it and they can see that data.
Absolutely. I would say every campus has a Fred who's been there 40 years, knows where all the bodies are buried. This is your opportunity to get that information from their head and get it put together and accessible.
Yep. All of our Freds retired a couple of years ago, so we've lost most of those already. So,
yep.
Yeah.
Well, we are right at the top of the hour. Perfect. So, Doug, I want to truly say thank you for doing this. I think there was a lot of great questions, great conversations. This is exactly what I expected. This was your chance to show us where you've been in your journey. It'll be interesting to see where you take it for the next 10 years. Hopefully, that progress is even faster.
Yeah.
And anybody else, feel free to reach out to Doug or myself to talk about where you're at, how you want to grow, bounce ideas. And we appreciate everyone joining. Feel free to reach out to us and we'll talk again down the line.
All right.